Welcome to my home here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Like lots of people, I arrived at middle age with more questions than I had answers, and consequently, I went in search for something other than the religious party line. And this quest I began in Texas in the 1980s, and it was responsible for my life changing from a conventional ordinary one to one of more adventure, some risk taking, and certainly significant journey that's lasted for over 25 years. Now, it was my mother who decided that I would go to college and that I would major in history to become a teacher. And it turns out that she was very wise in this decision. Of course, back in the 50s, the choices for careers for women were very limited. You know, I could be a secretary or a nurse, and she knew me well enough to know that I would do well as a teacher. And I did very much enjoy my 35 years of education. And I held lots of different kinds of positions. Everything from a one-room schoolhouse in rural Texas, where after lunch the kindergarten babies were brought in with their pallets, and I would step around them as I taught the older children, to Houston, Texas, to a very high-tech, brand-new high school of probably 3,000 students. And when I walked into my classroom, there wasn't a grade book or a lesson plan book. No, there was this machine, and it was a computer, and I was scared to death. I had much to learn. But within a few years, I conquered life in the fast lane, only to get another cosmic shove, and this time it took me to Arizona. And I was able to use my experiences as a teacher in the classroom because I went to work for Northern Arizona University as the student teacher coordinator. And then in 2002, I found myself in Santa Fe for the very first time. And I got a job as a consultant with the Department of Education here. But probably the position I held that had more to do with my spiritual growth was being a substitute teacher in the special ed department with the fragile children at Santa Fe High School. I was hired to tend these teenagers, and some of them were in wheelchairs, and they would never, ever get out of them. They were autistic children, and there's no cure. There was a beautiful, beautiful little girl whose mom had dropped her down a flight of stairs when she was a baby, and consequently she couldn't hear and she had difficulty walking. Well, there I was day after day with these children, taking them to the bathroom, helping them eat, reading to them, anything I could do. And I couldn't help but notice the joy they took in the most mundane things. Their lives were so limited, and yet they were joyous creatures. And there I was at that particular time in my life, suffering from disappointment and fear. These children helped me remember what I knew, which is, my thoughts were creating my day, not the circumstances of my life, not the fact that I didn't have a full-time job, or that my credit card debt was too high, or one more divorce. No, it was the way I was thinking about it. And these children helped me remember that, suffering is optional. So, since that time, I have tried to remember to be a student of myself, to notice how I'm showing up for life, check my thinking, be aware that I am the architect of my life, and I build it one thought at a time. And what I do is I write books that chronicle my journey. And I enjoy speaking to people, groups of people, about the trip. And this is my purpose. These latter days of my life. I no longer get up and go to a job, but now I write and I speak to people about my experiences in the hopes that they can relate, and something I'll say will help them show up for life a little bit better. And in conclusion, let me end with the good news. You and I may not have much control over the circumstances that come our way in life, but we do have total control over the thoughts that we wrap around them.